event time here at Beyond Wrestling off the grid. Got the #1 ranked Johnny Cockstrong going up against Dan Barry. Of course, it was a year ago this weekend that Dan Barry debuted for Beyond Wrestling at the Gospel of the Boards taping, playing spoiler, actually defeating Corvus Fear, who with one more victory would have become the #1 ranked wrestler in Beyond Wrestling. Instead, it was up to Johnny Cockstrong to take that title from Davey Vega last May at the Miracle Workers taping. Let's see if Dan Barry can play spoiler once again. 1 year in Beyond Wrestling, trying to commemorate it with the win over the #1 ranked wrestler. Johnny Cockstrong perhaps looking to set up a feat of strength. It looks he's pulled his trunks down.
New York, he is your Beyond Wrestling points leader, Johnny Cockstrong.
And Johnny Cockstrong able to pull that 25-pound weight off the mat.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up.
I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know what to say. I guess we know how he earned that moniker. Very lively crowd here in Bridgewater, Massachusetts, as they have been all night. Certainly urge you to check the link in the video description, perhaps even the annotation that we've laid over this video stream. Check out an alternate version of this match without commentary. It's like being there live in Bridgewater, Massachusetts with this raucous crowd. But now bringing the attention back to the two wrestlers in the ring as the bell sounds. With Johnny Cockstrong and Dan Barry, two wrestlers known for their sense of humor. It was Davey Vega that had persecuted Johnny Cockstrong for so long because of his wrestling style. Said that he did not take wrestling seriously enough and therefore could never pose a major threat. Well, now he's the face of Beyond Wrestling, the man that represents the company from the #1 spot. And Dan Barry checking out that weight and almost getting pinned to the mat before this match is even officially underway. Dan Barry perplexed as to how Johnny Cockstrong was able to pull this stunt before the match, but it doesn't seem like it's something that Dan Barry is going to be capable of doing. Barry and Cockstrong look to tie up once again. This time Dan Barry so smooth, transitioning right into that hammerlock. As Cockstrong's looking for an escape, once again finds himself in the same position. Now looking for that snapmare counter, able to find that separation. But as soon as he goes to apply that rear chinlock, Dan Barry once again applying that hammerlock. This time Cockstrong's in a worse position. It's going to be much more difficult to get to a vertical base. Dan Barry having a little bit of fun with that karate chop, allowing Johnny Cockstrong to get back up to his feet. Has not relinquished the hold yet. Now Cockstrong able to find a hammerlock of his own. But Dan Barry using his own foot to break the hold. Sweeping out the legs of Johnny Cockstrong. And Johnny Cockstrong, as he was pulling instinctually away at Dan Barry's face to release that hold, once again gets caught in that hammerlock. Now Dan Barry using his knee to hold the arm in position, using his free arms to do more damage to Johnny Cockstrong. I think sometimes we forget, because of the humorous stylings of Dan Barry and Johnny Cockstrong, just how good they are as wrestlers. But I think that perhaps also works in their advantage when you've got an opponent like Johnny Cockstrong, somebody who's so unorthodox. Not only is he difficult to prepare for, but if you're not taking him seriously, he's going to catch you off guard. Dan Barry not falling into Johnny Cockstrong's trap, unable to get tripped up, instead putting on that side headlock. I wonder if perhaps he's going to be looking to go back to the hammerlock. No, instead, Johnny Cockstrong was able to fight to a vertical base. One tug of the head.
That move was fucking sick.
One tug of the head, and Dan Barry's able to take him down to the mat. Oh, and now using his own foot to do more damage to the head of Johnny Cockstrong. I believe this is the first time encounter between Johnny Cockstrong and Dan Barry. Again, just a year ago, Dan Barry preventing Corvus Fear from becoming the #1 ranked wrestler. Now he has the opportunity to knock off the #1 ranked wrestler. Able to avoid contact, that clothesline. But I think Johnny Cockstrong just telegraphed it. And Dan Barry running face first to the lower extremities of Johnny Cockstrong. Now Dan Barry trying to take a breather on the floor. Hopefully trying to regain his composure. Let's see if Cockstrong's going to allow him to get back in the ring. No! Stomping on his hand. Cockstrong fought very hard for that number 1 ranked spot. And you know what? It's something that even though he is not a serious competitor, I know is very important to him. Johnny Cockstrong knocking Dan Barry off the apron. Still not letting Dan Barry get back in the ring. Dan Barry a little bit too distracted by some of the other fans around ringside. So he was looking to step back in the ring, got caught. Dan Barry, he is not Cockstrong. And Cockstrong launching himself over the ropes and taking Barry down on the floor with the Hurricane Rana. I didn't know he could do it either. Taking another look from another angle. The tall frame of Johnny Cockstrong showing amazing agility. Perhaps surprising himself, having to bust out the big guns to take it to Dan Barry. Dan Barry comes charging with that shoulder block, Johnny Cockstrong. Just catching him. And now, the pendulum. Dan Barry could be out. Johnny Cockstrong looking to roll him to his back. Leg is hooked. Dan Barry powers out. Of course, Johnny Cockstrong, since defeating Davey Vega for that number 1 ranked position, has been persecuted by not only Davey Vega, but his cohorts in the submission squad. That's why Off the Grid was originally intended to be held as a secret event. Invitation only, without a public location, to avoid the likes of the Submission Squad and the Pit Boss showing up. Of course, the Submission Squad have given up. It does not seem like they are going to be here tonight. The Pit Boss, on the other hand, is going to be fighting in an unsanctioned match after this main event against Johnny Mangway to settle things between the 2 former members of the Doom Patrol once and for all. That will have no bearing on their rankings. It's not sanctioned. In fact, I urge people not to stick around for it. Johnny Cockstrong got caught right there, turned inside out. You've got to wonder, even though Johnny Cockstrong is going to be confident that we're not going to see the Submission Squad here tonight, you never know. I mean, after the beating that he suffered at the About Time live event, Beyond Wrestling's first live event in Danbury, Connecticut, Johnny Cockstrong made it a point to purposely skip out on Back in Flesh when Beyond Wrestling made the Cleveland live event debut. We saw a lot of members of the roster fighting on behalf of Johnny Cockstrong, including Arrow Foreman AR Fox. But even still, when Johnny Cockstrong made his return to Beyond Wrestling for the Crises Precipitates Change taping, we heard that theme music from R.D. Evans, which was enough to distract him. We saw Anthony Stone pick up a victory over the number 1 ranked Johnny Cockstrong. Johnny Cockstrong didn't even show up for the second day of the taping, so you're always going to wonder in the back of his mind if he's going to be competing at 100% or if he's going to be distracted, knowing that there's always a slim chance that the Submission Squad, Davey Vega and R.D. Evans, could be looking to ambush him once again. Back to the action. Dan Barry's been firmly in control for the past couple minutes, really taking a more methodical pace to wear down the unorthodox Johnny Cockstrong. But I think he might have telegraphed that hip toss by yelling hip toss. And Johnny Cockstrong was looking for that flipping bridge on the pin, found himself in another pinning predicament, but as a result, taking a little too much time, and Dan Barry able to counter. Not able to catch him with a hip toss, but look at that counter! Able to use his leg to take Cockstrong down to the mat and drop kicking him to the back. Very unusual exchange between Dan Barry and Johnny Cockstrong. Dan Barry has not done the job yet. See Barry perhaps getting a little bit frustrated again. Even the comedic stylings of Dan Barry, I think that perhaps he might have underestimated Johnny Cockstrong. But, I mean, again, with that #1 spot in Beyond Wrestling, I'm not sure how so many opponents can continue to make that same mistake. Now we see Dan Barry perhaps going for that submission predicament, transitioning seamlessly into that wrist lock. He's got his foot positioned on the back of the neck of Johnny Cockstrong. Now tying up the legs. Trying to pull him into position for that Texas Cloverleaf, and he's got it applied. Some splendid technical acumen out of Dan Barry. We see Dan Barry hitting Johnny Cockstrong in the ding-dong. Not too hard, though. Doesn't want to hurt his own hand. Now pulling Johnny Cockstrong off the mat. Just a chop away at the chest. And Dan Barry's so methodical. You gotta think that all the wrestlers that he's had hand training based out of the New York area, guys like Zack Ryder, Kurt Hawkins, Trent Beretta. Oh, but he got caught right there. Johnny Cockstrong calling for the go to cock, and he got it. Take a look at that. Dan Barry swinging wildly, perhaps looking for a knockout blow. Instead, got caught with a different type of blow. Anthony Green applying the count to both wrestlers. Gonna hope that somebody's gonna be able to meet the 10 count. Of course, we saw that bad call in the last match against Dave Cole and Pinky Sanchez, where Pinky answered the count, which for some reason the referee called the match anyway. That referee has been sent home. Barry learns the first blow, but unable to take Cockstrong off his feet. Cockstrong really staggered with that most recent shot. Bouncing off the ropes, though, connecting with a forearm of his own. Gotta remember, Johnny Cockstrong, somebody who's been with Beyond Wrestling since the very first day. In fact, I mean, he's gone on record stating that Beyond Wrestling is the only place that he likes to compete because it's the only place where he has fun. Dan Barry going for that inverted atomic drop. Now just going for a blatant low blow. I think Dan Barry thinks he's going to be able to try and wear down Cockstrong. It hasn't been done yet. Body slamming Cockstrong in a position, just dumping him. Oh, now coming off the second rope with that double stomp. Surely that did the trick. Oh, Johnny Cockstrong playing possum, impervious to that attack. And the in-the-pants pile driver is going to be enough to pick up the victory. 1, 2. Take another look at that. You hear Johnny Cockstrong yelling, "Psych!" Pulling Dan Barry into the trunks, just dumping him on his head with the pile driver. Perhaps just taking a second too long to get into the pin. You can tell that Cockstrong's really spent. It's almost as if the fans here at Bridgewater are trying to will both wrestlers back up to their feet. Dan Barry with a series of kicks. Now calling for that fastball punch. Perhaps the punchline even. I think he's got him. Wow. That was a nasty potential knockout shot.
No, keep it in the ring.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's actually the move that he used to defeat Corvus Fear at the Gospel of the Boards. Now Dan Barry looking for something off the top rope. We've seen once or twice before when he's in tag team action with his partner, Ken Scampy. He likes to use that sliced bread off the top rope, but I think from this position, the only way he'd be able to hit it is to the floor. That seems extremely dangerous. But perhaps he's going to be going for that Dan Barry driver off the second rope. Either way, he's put himself in a precarious position. You know that Johnny Cockstrong going for that signature yes way, that kryptonite crunch on the top buckle. And that's the knockout blow that Cockstrong needed. The pencil cock for good measure. You gotta be kidding me! I don't think we've seen anybody kick out of that. That was the move that Johnny Cockstrong used to put Davey Vega away to become the #1 ranked wrestler. Dan Barry fighting on instinct alone. I mean, able to get the shoulder off the mat, but barely stirring. You see Johnny Cockstrong shaking his head in total disbelief. I mean, if that's the most powerful weapon you have in your arsenal, where do you go from here? Cockstrong perhaps trying to pull Dan Barry back up into the in-the-pants pile driver. No, instead, perhaps going for a Northern Lights bomb. I think that's a step down from what we've seen. Either way, Dan Barry with a counter. Now Dan Barry's got the arms butterflied. Oh, that double underhook brainbuster. That's the Dan Barry driver right there. Instead of going for the pin, something else in mind. Really knowing how much Cockstrong has been digging deep in this match. And I don't know, though. Dan Barry's putting Cockstrong in the same position. That flying uppercut. I mean, does Cockstrong have what it takes to be able to hit that Yesway from this position? No, instead, Dan Barry's got him hooked. What's he going to do, a fall-away slam? Oh, no, a moonsault! A moonsault into the slam. All his body's weight coming crashing down on his opponent. Not only the impact of the slam, but Dan Barry landing on top of him. That was enough to put Cockstrong away. And Dan Barry, 2 years in a row, has played spoiler. And take another look at this avalanche-style move. I gotta say, I've never seen anything like that before. Doing a full front flip with his opponent's weight. There was no way Cockstrong was getting out of that. But Dan Barry, 2 years in a row, knocking off Corvus Fear in his debut at Gospel of the Boards, and 1 year later, proving, regardless of the antics, regardless of what John Harder and the Professional Revolution have to say, that Dan Barry is a very gifted athlete, a very skilled competitor, and can hang with the very best in Beyond Wrestling. Something that John Harder's faction can't say when they lost to the Super Smash Brothers earlier tonight and left the building. Crowd here calling for a dick high five, and we get it. Again, great back and forth action from two very unorthodox competitors. And Dan Barry, and speak of the devil, here comes JT Dunn and Leon St. Giovanni. Taking a look around ringside, I don't see too many of the wrestlers here. I think a lot of them went to the back to prepare the unsanctioned main event. But Dan Barry able to kick JT Dunn in the head and coming to the rescue of Johnny Cockstrong. Sending Leon St. Giovanni to the floor. You hear John Harder calling for Plan B, but it seems the Professional Revolution has been mostly ineffective, but who's this guy? They're just stomping on Dan Barry. JT Dunn bringing Johnny Cockstrong to the corner. And it looks like JT Dunn is trying to secure Johnny Cockstrong to the rope with zip ties. I still haven't gotten a good look at this individual that knocked out Dan Barry. We've seen him lurking in the corner, all right. I don't know. I thought he was just a fan. Hey, I'll admit it. I'm not the best at working at the door. It's pretty easy to sneak into Beyond Wrestling Live. Regardless, Johnny Cockstrong tied up in the corner. Oh, and just a slap. Now Leon St. Giovanni just putting the boots to him. As Dan Barry gets choked, Cockstrong able to free one of his arms. Now it's looking like he's going to try and free the other. But JT Dunn with the super kick. St. Giovanni with the DDT. And you remember, the Professional Revolution has been John Harder's beef with Dan Barry all along, saying that he's unprofessional, that he doesn't have heart because of the way that he approaches professional wrestling. And now that we see the person hitting the spinebuster on Dan Barry finally taking a good look, it's Mark Sherman. And word finally getting to the back of the mugging, the assault, whatever you want to call it, taking place in the ring. Finally, Pinky Sanchez leading the charge. There we see the Academy of Anatomy. St. Giovanni, he's had his past run-ins with Pinky. Now a 3-on-1 attack on Pinky. He's just trying to do the right thing. Here comes the explosive Taka Suzuki. And again, Mark Sherman and the rest of the Professional Revolution trying to take the fight to the other wrestlers. But I think they did what they wanted to do, and the damage has been done to Dan Barry. We got to get somebody to get Johnny Cockstrong out of the ropes. Somebody to check on Dan Barry. Pinky really taking his lumps. See, Corvus is a little bit frustrated. He doesn't have any scissors on him. Ken Scampy not scheduled to compete today, but helping his tag team partner Dan Barry along with Pinky Sanchez to the back. Very chaotic situation right here. We thought the Professional Revolution had left the building, but instead tied up Johnny Cockstrong so that they could ambush Dan Barry. You got to think the things between Dan Barry and the Professional Revolution are just heating up. Johnny Cockstrong rightfully getting his moment, that round of applause. The Academy of Anatomy raising his hand. At least they have the respect for this individual, even though they don't have it for Anthony Stone. Nick Talon and Mark Angel. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! These guys really have some nerve. And what kind of statement is this? Beating a defenseless individual that's already been in a mugging. Nick Talent saying that him and Mark Angel have a plan. That remains to be seen. Just stomping on the head of Johnny Cockstrong, letting their frustrations be known. I absolutely think that as good as these guys are, they would be fantastic with guidance from a competitor like Anthony Stone. Of course, all the wrestlers had gone to the back to check on Dan Barry. It looks like Jericho and 20 now is going to be leading the troops in the ring, getting into a shoving contest with Nick Talent. Jericho and 20 being outmatched. Here comes Taka Suzuki, Chase Burnett, whoever's left in the building. And whatever statement the Academy of Anatomy was looking to make, looks like their plan was quickly foiled. Trying to piggyback off the attack of the Professional Revolution. And I'll tell you what, if Johnny Cockstrong was concerned about attacks just from the submission squad, you've got to think the entire roster is going to be gunning after him, getting beat down by the Professional Revolution and the Academy of Anatomy. There you see, not even wanting to shake Chase Burnett's hand. Cockstrong doesn't trust anybody. Mark Angel. Things absolutely getting out of control. We've still got an unsanctioned match between Johnny. I'm sorry, I'm very flustered here. The match between Johnny Mango and the Pit Boss. That's yet to come.